Hi everyone. Glad you've clicked on this link for another edition of Disaster Hack. The purpose of this series is to increase knowledge about hazards, vulnerability, disasters, and emergency management. And I feel that this is very important because not enough people understand these concepts or this profession. So hopefully this video will help. Today I have a fairly short video about the policy process. Nonetheless, I think it's a very important one for those interested in or working in emergency management. It's imperative that we understand how policies are made and implemented in terms of disasters and emergency management. So let's begin. First, let me stress our learning objective today. Our goal is to understand the policy process and how it relates to emergency management. In addition, I want to spend a little bit of time on windows of opportunities, understanding that concept and how it relates to disasters and emergency management. There are 5 components, steps, or phases associated with the policy process. These include problem identification, agenda setting, policy development, policy implementation, and policy review. Let's talk about each one in further detail. Problem definition is simply identifying what concerns you might have in your jurisdiction. Perhaps there's a lack of funding for emergency management. Maybe you have insufficient personnel in your emergency management office. Maybe we need more stringent regulations regarding land use. Or maybe we need to improve our structural mitigation efforts in case of an earthquake. Perhaps we need a new EOC, an Emergency Operations Center. Or we need a new warning system that's modern and up to date. Next, we need to determine our priorities, and this is really what agenda setting is all about. What of all of the concerns is most important? Putting them in rank order may help, and keep in mind you won't have funding for everything, so you're going to have to prioritize. The third aspect of the policy process is policy development. This is really making your decision and clarifying the specific details of your choice. What, where, how, when you will implement your policy. This brings up the next step in the policy process, and that's policy implementation. In other words, putting your decision into action. So you might need to pass a new law or executive order or ordinance in your community. You might need to get the funding provided. Maybe you need to create a new organization or hire personnel or implement other measures that I've talked about. Finally, the last phase in the policy process is policy evaluation. This is really determining if you've met your goals. And so your study, your evaluation, your assessment of the policy may result in its continuation, its completion, or even a rejection of that particular idea or policy. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that it's likely that prior to disaster, not much attention and support will be given to emergency management. People just don't care about disasters, unfortunately, until they occur. But this attitude can change dramatically when a disaster occurs, and this is a window of opportunity. Let's talk further about that. The Oakland Hills fire provides a great example of this. Prior to 1991, there was a growing concern in the fire and emergency management communities that Oakland was becoming more vulnerable to fires. Recommendations were made to prohibit wood shingles, encourage the thinning of brush around homes, and improve the capability of the fire department to address major conflagrations. Unfortunately, these suggestions, which were repeated often, were rejected over and over and over again. And sadly, the budget of the fire department was cut in the late 1970s and in the 1980s. When a major fire broke out in 1991 and killed several people and destroyed hundreds of homes, the political leaders were open to change. Emergency managers, fire officials, and others again proposed changes to reduce vulnerability, and fortunately this time they were accepted and implemented. The difference was night and day, and the window of opportunity provided by the disaster was taken advantage of. Now keep in mind one thing. You need to have your ducks in a row before a disaster strikes. For instance, you should have your ideas written down on paper and ready to be discussed. This will help promote acceptance of your policy proposals and the change you are seeking. To wrap up, there are 5 elements associated with the policy process: problem definition, agenda setting, policy development, policy implementation, and policy review. In addition, it's important that you take advantage of your window of opportunity when disasters occur. Of course, you should proactively and always push for policy change in terms of disasters and emergency management. If you would like further information about the policy process, I would strongly encourage you to read this book by Thomas Birkeland, an expert in this particular area. In addition, there's a great article by Olson, and Goronsky. It's called Night and Day. It's a little bit old, but it's a great case study of windows of opportunity. Well, thanks so much for joining me, and have a great day.